Hello everyone, this is part 9 of What If Naruto Was a Demigod in the Justice League, and I hope you guys enjoy this video and to like, to subscribe, to share, and check out the playlist, to see more comment down below. Now let's start the intro.
They call me a god. They call me a god. They call me a god.
I don't wanna go back. Diana whined and rolled in the bed inside Naruto's bedroom in his spaceship. If her fellows from the Justice League saw her actions at that moment, they would think someone else was impersonating her. It was difficult to believe that a several thousand-year-old warrior princess was throwing a tantrum like a bratty kid, much to Naruto's amusement. And, as it had become a habit for him over the past week, he activated the tiny camera hidden in one of the buttons of his clothes to record the entire scene. I can't wait to look at her face once she sees the videos of herself. He was giggling to himself just at the mental image of how embarrassed she was going to be. You know my stance on this. I don't want you to go back to Earth either, Naruto said, but then he started chuckling again when she buried her face into the pillows and let out a muffled yell. Then, she rolled on her back and looked at the ceiling with her arms and legs spread eagle on the bed. Oof. It was the sound she made as all air left her lungs when Naruto unexpectedly threw himself on top of her. Then, she started to squirm with all her strength to escape when his fingers started tickling her sides. No tickling. Let me go. She screamed and laughed at the same time, but Naruto was merciless. Kurama, help, she yelled. Shut up. The fox barked from the living room of the ship's personal quarters. I swear no one can sleep anymore in this house these days. What are you, little kids? ? But his words fell on deaf ears as the two of them continued to laugh and giggle while wrestling and rolling in the bed, trying to defeat the other. But when the spaceship suddenly shook, they stopped. Breathing a bit heavily, Naruto pressed his lips on hers in a quick kiss and then he jumped out of the bed. 5-3 in my favor, he said and rushed out of the bedroom. It's 4-3. Not 5. This morning didn't count. And you said you would stop keeping the score. She yelled after him, but his only response was to laugh. She smiled as she stood up from the bed and followed him out of the bedroom. The shaking of the ship signified that they had finally exited the space warp. Now, the Earth was only 15 to 20 minutes of spaceflight away. When she entered the control room, she saw him sitting in the pilot's seat, inserting commands to set the course of the ship to Earth. She came behind the pilot's chair and leaned with her elbows on the backrest, putting her chin on top of his head. After 1 week spent in the space city of Genesis Stadium together with Naruto, she felt very reluctant at the thought of going back to Earth and dealing with all the problems that were waiting for her. You really don't need to go back to Earth. The Justice League has grown much stronger than before, hasn't it? ? You said so yourself, you have more than 100 members by now, Naruto said. Wonder Woman nuzzled her face into his spiky hair. Your hair smells so nice today. You're finally using the shampoo I bought for you, she said, not giving him an answer right away. Previously, Naruto had had only one bottle of shower gel for hands, head, face, and the rest of the body, one for everything. Even QB used the same thing too when he took a bath. But Diana had found it inconceivable. Now, there were over 5 types of shampoo bottles and other bottles with body lotion and oils too in the ship's bathroom. You know, I like fighting crime. I love protecting the innocent and beating the living daylights out of criminals. Diana said after a while of nuzzling his hair, making Naruto laugh. But what I don't like, she continued, is dealing with those like Lex Luthor and other politicians that are scheming in the dark, behind the scenes. Those who manipulate public opinion into hating the Justice League and creating an anti-metahumans movement. I hate it when they can do whatever they want by taking advantage of loopholes, knowing that we can't touch them as long as they don't break the law. And even if they break the law, they can buy their way out of jail with bribes and good lawyers. She sighed in annoyance. Things were simpler before when the Justice League was smaller. Yes, there was much more workload on our hands because there were only 7 of us, but at least it wasn't like this. We didn't have to deal with politics. We didn't have to deal every day with mass media, nor did we have to meet up with various world leaders almost every week at peace summits. Now it's like the whole world is out to get us, just looking for any reason, no matter how small, to criticize whatever we do. Wonder Woman sat up and moved around the chair, in front of him. She sat down in his lap with the back of her knees over the armrest of the pilot's seat and put her head on his shoulder. She had spent 1 week together with Naruto, just relaxing, visiting new places and having fun, something that she had not done in years. It had helped a great deal in relieving her stress and improving her mental state. However, for some unexplainable reason, the closer to Earth she got, the more irritated and tired she became. I'm serious, Diana. I mean, since we're already in the Sol system, we can go back for you to say your goodbyes and spend some time with your friends. But we don't need to stay for a long time. It's not like the Justice League needs you specifically any longer, Naruto said. It's too early to leave now. The League did grow much stronger than before, but things are still fresh and rather uncertain. There's a lot of attention on us at the moment too, from the entire world. The League needs me. I am, after all, one of the key, founding members of the Justice League and one of the strongest too. Hearing her answer, Naruto did not continue to insist. He knew that Wonder Woman truly wanted to be together with him, but she could not simply throw away her sense of responsibility either. Wonder Woman cared about Earth and its people, about preserving the peace and protecting the innocent. Although she was not happy at having to tackle the other problems that came with it, she did not want to just run away from them. Well, I won't leave right away. I promised you we'd spend Christmas together, and there are still about 2 to 3 weeks until then, if I'm not mistaken. Not just the Christmas, stay for the New Year too, Diana muttered. When he saw the hopeful look on her face, he found himself smiling. Okay, New Year too, he said and pecked her on the forehead. He could not refuse her anything. She snuggled with her face into the crook of his neck and he caressed the back of her head gently, inwardly marveling at how soft and silky her hair felt to the touch. She made a hum of comfort at the way he was massaging her scalp. While the two of them were cuddling in the pilot's seat, a 9-tailed fox cub suddenly hopped on Diana's thigh and said, Naruto, I'm hungry. Naruto laughed helplessly. Nothing else mattered for the Bayou once he got hungry. Good grief, he said, but he smiled fondly at the fox. He brought his hand in front of QB and a blue sphere of energy a bit bigger than a tennis ball took shape in his palm. Well then, what's it gonna be this time? QB felt his mouth water at the sight of the blue Rasengan. Leave it as it is. Vanilla is good too once in a while. Both Naruto and Diana chuckled at QB's words while he started to feast on the sphere of chakra. Asterism. Darkseid is dead? The hell, how did that happen? Few things could surprise Naruto that much nowadays, but what he had just heard certainly was one of them. QB's large ears were not just for show. Though he and Naruto were in a completely different part of the watchtower, the fox could hear perfectly what the Justice League's core members were discussing in the conference room if he concentrated his senses on it. Apparently, Darkseid requested their help against some superintelligent robot named Brainiac who had attacked Apocalypse, not knowing that in fact, Darkseid had been in cohorts with Brainiac to capture Superman. But, in the end, Darkseid backstabbed both Brainiac and the Justice League. However, he underestimated the new and much larger Justice League. He ended up dying in the explosion of an asteroid base after a big battle against the Justice League. Or at least that's what they're saying. QB relayed. At the fox's words, Naruto made a serious menacing face. Darkseid was someone that even he was wary of, hence why he had refused Orion's bounty to assassinate Darkseid, thinking that he would not hold an advantage in a fight against the god of evil on the planet Apocalypse where he could not use his 6-path sage mode. To think that they've grown strong enough to even kill someone like Darkseid. Have I underestimated the Justice League? When I fought against the Justice Lords, their counterparts from the other dimension, they didn't strike me as powerful enough to defeat someone like Darkseid, let alone kill him. He was finding it hard to believe that Darkseid died in that manner or that he died at all. No way that someone who conquered an entire dwarf galaxy died in such a lame way. I wouldn't trust something like this unless I saw his dead body myself. Asterism. I'm on vacation for a week and that's when all the exciting things happen. Wonder Woman joked lightly. Superman looked at her weirdly. Since when did Wonder Woman start telling jokes? Is Darkseid really dead though? How did you kill him? Did you see his dead body? She asked. Coincidentally, Diana's thought process was identical to that of Naruto. We didn't kill him, Flash answered. He died in an explosion. So you didn't see his corpse, she concluded. Brainiac's base was an asteroid no smaller than the moon. No one could have survived an explosion like that. Not you, not even Superman, Batman said, and Superman supported his words. Darkseid really is finished for good. One of our most dangerous enemies is no more. By the way, what have you been up to for the past week? Kara told me you spent some time with your lover? Ever since I joined the Justice League almost 2 years ago, I've always been tense and ready to fight. No time to rest, no breaks, always on the lookout even during Christmas or the New Year. This 1 week-long holiday has been a long overdue break, Wonder Woman said, and smiled slightly when she thought about her time together with Naruto. It's good to have you back, Diana, Martian Manhunter said with a smile. I assume things are going well between you and Mr. Uzumaki? How did you figure that out? Are you kidding? When have we ever seen you cracking jokes? Or smiling like that? Flash said, making the princess look to the side in slight embarrassment, avoiding eye contact. Other than the incident with Darkseid, has anything noteworthy happened over the past week? She asked, quickly changing the subject. Nothing out of the ordinary. But I'm concerned with the ever-growing unrest amidst the general population. There was even a protest in the streets against the Justice League a few days ago. Nothing large, but the fact that it happened is worrisome, Martian Manhunter said, and he used a remote control to play a video on one of the screens in the conference room. Almost 300 people could be seen in front of Daily Planet, in Metropolis City. As you see, it's a very small protest, but because they gathered in front of Daily Planet, it appeared all over the media and it escalated greatly from there. Social media platforms are all over it now, Martian Manhunter said. Superman, you work at Daily Planet as Clark Kent. Couldn't you? Wonder Woman began to say, only for Superman to shake his head and reply. I couldn't do anything. I'm just an editor. I have little say in this, I can't control what my co-workers do. Besides, it is within people's rights to protest and express their opinions. Free speech is a right given by the First Amendment of the Constitution. Wonder Woman rubbed at her forehead. She could feel the beginning of a headache. That was what she hated. She was a warrior. She wanted just to fight crime and protect people. She did not want to have to deal with politics, polemics, and mass media. Superman and Lois Lane fought 2 days ago. They're still not talking to each other. Flash brought a hand to his mouth and whispered to Wonder Woman conspiratorially. The Kryptonian pinched the bridge of his nose. You do realize that I can hear you, right? Super hearing and all that. Oops. Flash said, but he was clearly unrepentant if the grin on his face was anything to go by. Ever since they revealed their identities to each other, the core members of the Justice League have grown closer than before. Superman's thorny relationship with Lois Lane was a running joke among them, similar to how Flash constantly tried, and failed, to get a date. When their meeting was over, Martian Manhunter asked, when are you ready to resume your duties? In 2 days, starting with the next week, on Monday, Diana answered. The Martian looked on his tablet at a long and complex table that contained the shifts of all the members of the new Justice League. There were almost 150 heroes already, and the number was steadily growing with every passing week. Creating a schedule to accommodate the needs of all of them was becoming increasingly difficult because most of the members also had families or jobs in their civilian identities. But Martian Manhunter was the brain of the Justice League, the one that coordinated everyone and assigned them tasks and zones to patrol, so he knew better than anyone which zone of the planet lacked manpower. We'll need you 4 days next week, for 8 to 12 hours every day. Monday and Tuesday on the African continent, in Nigeria. There is a new armed force of rebels who are planning to overthrow the government to install a totalitarian regime. We need to put a stop to it before they actually do it. Then, after a few seconds of double-checking the schedule for open spots, he added. Friday and Saturday you'll be needed in Asia. Our satellites detected suspicious levels of radiation on the territory of North Korea. We have to investigate it and see the exact cause. It could be that they're trying to develop a new type of nuclear weapon, or it could be that there was a nuclear accident and they are trying to cover it up regardless of the human casualties suffered in the process. We have to investigate the situation and deal with it accordingly. Friday and Saturday could probably take as little as 4 to 5 hours, or it could be a 48-hour-long shift. It depends on what the situation will be. Is that okay with you? Wonder Woman noted down the details of her assignments for the next week on a piece of paper. It is fine with me. I have to go now. But if anything urgent comes up, don't hesitate to call me, she said and smiled as she waved goodbye at them. Once Wonder Woman left the conference room, Flash said, "She's happier than I've ever seen her before. And we've known her for years. Naruto really is treating her well, She's head over heels for him. It looks like Mr. Uzumaki is a very good influence on her," Martian Manhunter agreed. "I wish things were as good between Lois and me as they seem to be between the two of them," Superman said wistfully. Batman raised an eyebrow at him. "Let me guess, your latest fight was not just about the protest, was it? Ever since I revealed to her that I'm Superman, things have not been the same," Superman said. He paused, his face looking as though he greatly disliked what he was about to say, but he needed to get it off his chest. "I feel like all along, she has been attracted only to Superman." Finding out that Superman was also Clark Kent, the country bumpkin from Kansas, must have disillusioned her. "We've been to a few dates before, but we always end up getting in an argument for one reason or another." Flash had never been in a serious relationship with someone before, so he did not know how to answer to that. Martian Manhunter was from a different planet altogether, and he was not exactly sure of the dynamics between men and women on Earth, and Batman simply did not want to get involved in other people's love lives. Especially considering that he had also dated Lois Lane as Bruce Wayne a few years in the past, before the Justice League's creation, much to Superman's jealousy back then. As for John Stewart, he was not on Earth at that moment, he was away on Green Lantern business. "I think me and Lois are just, not working." The Kryptonian looked at the door through which Wonder Woman had left a few minutes before with a peculiar look in his eyes. "Don't try to do something stupid," Batman said in warning. While Superman's peculiar look towards Wonder Woman when she left had escaped Flash's and Martian Manhunter's notice, the ever-perceptive Batman had caught it right away. Gotham's Dark Knight was not nicknamed the world's greatest detective for no reason. "I don't know what you're talking about," Superman said, but, inwardly, he was spooked by Batman's keen senses and on-spot intuition. He had worked together with Batman for years and he had gotten used to seeing his brilliance on a daily basis, but there were still moments when he was genuinely startled by him, an ordinary man with no superpowers. Batman shrugged his shoulders. "Do whatever you want, but remember to not drag others into your mess." After he said that, Batman left the conference room, leaving behind a confused-looking Flash and Martian Manhunter and a vexed Superman. The meaning of Batman's last words was not lost to him. If Superman did something bad, it would inevitably paint the entire Justice League in a bad light because he was one of the leading and most iconic figures of the Justice League. The Man of Steel was frustrated. "It's too late anyway. Flash is right. Diana looks like she's head over heels for Naruto, even I can see that. I only have myself to blame that I pinned for the wrong woman for so long. It's my fault I didn't try to get closer to Diana when I had the chance." The moment he realized that he was contemplating a relationship with a woman different than Lois Lane, guilt bit at his heart. But it also cemented the feeling that his relationship with Lois Lane was not going to work out. "I think I should end it sooner than later. No point in dragging it out. It will be better for us both if we end it quickly and cleanly." The only thing he was afraid of was that Lois Lane might make his identity public. But he shook his head and denied that thought. Lois is a good woman. She would never do something like that. Just because their relationship was not working, that did not mean that his opinion of her as a person had suddenly become bad. They could continue to be friends and get along well at their jobs like before. Seeing that he was now alone in the conference room, Martian Manhunter and Flash had gone back to their duties, Superman took out his cell phone and started scrolling through his contacts. Then, he selected one and dialed it. After a few seconds, a bright voice answered his call. "Clark, is that you? You haven't called me in ages. How are you? A smile appeared on Superman's face when he heard the happiness in her voice. "Yes, it's me, Lana. I just wanted to see how are you these days. Haven't heard from you in a while." The famous and extremely busy Superman took some time of his day to call Lil, old me? The Man of Steel's smile widened at her teasing. "Not exactly little anymore. Your clothing line has become quite famous in Paris, Hasn't it? Now you're even extending to Milan too. How did you know? Ha. So you do keep an eye on me. Should I be scared or happy that you're stalking me? He chuckled at her words. It's not stalking. It's my duty to look over my friends. A short silence followed after that. Say, Lana, would you like to meet and catch up over dinner today? I don't know, Clark. This is too sudden. There's a fashion show in Milan today that I have to attend and I will be exhausted after wearing heels the whole evening. Besides, weren't you and that reporter, Lois Lane, a thing? Superman let out a sigh. We haven't spoken in 2 days. And we argue all the time. It's not working for us. She was always in love with Superman. The country boy Clark Kent was never good enough for her, he said bitterly. I see, Lana Lang replied. Lana Lang and Clark Kent had grown together since they were kids. They were childhood friends. Lana Lang was one of the few people who knew his identity as Superman too because she had witnessed him growing into his powers from the beginning. She had always wanted something more than just friendship from Clark Kent, but he had turned down her affections, friend-zoning her. Later on, she left the USA for Europe where she became a fashion designer. They had grown more distant over the years and stopped keeping in touch frequently like they used to. I didn't make a move on Diana when I had the chance. Now that train is gone and won't come back. But I won't make the same mistake again, Superman decided. After his experience with Lois Lane, Superman realized that the only woman who has ever truly accepted him, both as Clark Kent and as Superman, was Lana Lang. She was the girl next door that he had been blind enough to think of as just a friend when they were younger. But his view of her had completely changed 3 years ago when Lana Lang returned to the USA. In the meantime, she had become a very attractive woman, a successful fashion designer, and she managed to start a relationship with a billionaire, Lex Luthor. She has even betrayed Lex Luthor for my sake, exposing his deals with the terrorists. Remembering what she had done for him, Superman realized that Lana Lang still cared for him even after the passing of so many years. So, where exactly in Milan is your fashion show taking place? One can be there in a few minutes. Twinkling laughter came from the other side of the phone. As Clark Kent or as Superman? I'll come as Clark Kent. I can even write an article about your fashion show and your career if you want. What if I wanted you to come as Superman? I wouldn't do that. I don't want to steal your thunder. Who would care about your fashion show anymore if they saw me? Superman said teasingly and grinned. You prat, she said, and they laughed together. So this is where you live, Naruto said when he entered Wonder Woman's apartment. It was a very spacious and modern-looking apartment, on the top floor of a skyscraper, in New York. The floor-to-ceiling tall windows in the living room offered a gorgeous view of the city. Are you surprised? A bit. I was expecting you to live in some ancient manor on a mountain or something. That was a dig at my age, wasn't it? She said with narrowed eyes and slapped him on the butt, making him jump up startled. She laughed, delighted at his reaction. What? You've quite enjoyed touching my butt over the past week. I think I'm entitled to do the same with yours. It was one of the very rare moments when Naruto's face became red. Fufu, so you do get flustered too. Grinning from one ear to another, she pressed a quick kiss on his lips and then slipped away, leaving an embarrassed Naruto behind. When she returned from her bedroom 3 minutes later, he saw that she had taken off her white and golden armor and put on some casual clothes instead, a pair of gray sweatpants and a baggy dark blue t-shirt. Despite the plain clothes, he felt like her pure beauty was shown even more than when she was wearing her glamorous armor. Don't just stand there, come, make yourself at home, Diana said as she grabbed his hands and pulled him to sit next to her on the sofa. As Naruto took off his fur-collared cloak and put it on the armrest of the sofa, she looked at him silently, from head to toe. I think we should go and buy some normal clothes. You can't go around in your cloak and combat suit everywhere. People will look at you like you've come out of a sci-fi movie. From an Earthling's point of view, it looked like the battle suit of a super soldier from a sci-fi video game. There were matte metallic plates protecting his shoulders, his back, his chest and his shins, a utility belt around his waist and 2 holsters on his thighs that stored a particular type of daggers that had sealing formulas inscribed on their handles. Naturally, if Naruto was placed next to Earth's superheroes, compared to guys wearing bright red colors or their underwear above the pants, his attire would not catch anyone's eyes. But Diana was planning on spending time with Naruto without their armor, among regular civilians. So, when do you start your hero work again? He asked. In 2 days, next week, on Monday. Want me to tag along with you? It would be fun to do some missions together, he said. Diana hesitated. I'd love that, but I don't think it would sit well with the rest of the Justice League. Don't forget, you're still the boogeyman for them. It wasn't too long ago that you and Kurama destroyed a planet. They're still scared by that. Naruto looked bummed out. Speaking of Kurama, I haven't known him for as long as you do, but I think he's been acting strangely in the past few days. After leaving the watchtower and coming down to Earth, Kyuubi asked Naruto to drop him in the center of Africa, somewhere in the middle of the continent's savannah. Now that you mentioned it, I see it too. He's been away for long periods at a time. Maybe it's because of me? Diana asked. Maybe he's trying to give us space and not feel like the third wheel? Naruto looked at her in doubt. I don't know about that. I think he just felt in the mood to bully and beat up some lions. He's always doing that to the apex predators of any planet he goes to. The last time we came to Earth, he beat up and ate a bear in the Balkan Mountains, in Europe. Something about showing everyone who's the top dog. But you may be right, he's been quite distant on Genesis Stadium too. I'll go talk to him today. Then, he stood up and grabbed his cloak from the sofa, putting it back on. Where are you going? She asked. I'll go see Dr. Fate. He's helped me a great deal last time with purging the poisoned natural energy from my body. Since I'm back on Earth, I should pay him a visit. Do you wanna tag along? She shook her head. Maybe some other time. You go, I'll wait for you here, at home. You might even find a surprise when you come back. Diana followed him to the door, but when he was about to leave, she grabbed him by the cloak. Didn't you forget something? What do you mean? He asked, feigning ignorance. Naruto, she said in a warning voice. He grinned at her glare. But he cupped her cheeks with his hands and kissed her on the lips. What was supposed to be a quick goodbye kiss became much longer when she wrapped her hands around him, not letting him go. At this rate, you'll make me not want to leave anymore, he said when they finally broke away. She giggled and pecked him on the lips one more time. Now you're free to go, she said as she turned him around. Then, she slapped his ass one more time and pushed him out of the apartment. He did not even have the chance to object because she closed the door right after him. Good grief, he said in amusement. Who is she and what has she done with the prudish princess from before? When they had just become a couple, Diana was bashful and she would flush over the smallest displays of affection from him. But it looked like that was a thing of the past. Now, it seemed like the saying, what goes around comes around, was quite true because it was his turn to be flustered at her forward behavior. During the elevator ride, he could see his still embarrassed face in the mirrors on the walls. But luckily, there were no other people to see him. Asterism. An over 100-foot-long spaceship landed on the outskirts of Salem, Massachusetts. In the clearing of a forest, there was only one simple building, a rather tall but very narrow quadrilateral tower made of bricks. There were no windows and no doors, and the building itself did not look like anyone could live in it. Naruto walked around the narrow tower with an expression of interest on his face. Behind the white mask covering his face, his pupils transformed into rectangular bars like that of a toad, and an orange shade appeared around his eyes. After entering the Sage mode, he became able to see the thick energy surrounding the tower. There was an entire network of spells covering it. Confirming that he was at the right location, he cancelled his Sage mode and his eyes returned to their previous appearance, reddened, like the eyes of a fox. Dr. Fate? Do you hear me? At his call, one of the walls of the tower started to glow and a bright golden portal in the shape of an anchor appeared. Mr. Uzumaki, do come in, a voice came from beyond the portal. Once he stepped through the portal, he found himself inside a rather dark room. It was not to the point of not seeing his surroundings, but the lack of natural light and the dark red undertone gave the room a mystical feeling. Welcome to my humble abode, an old man greeted Naruto. He had gray hair and he was dressed no different than other men of his apparent age on Earth. Nothing humble about this place, Naruto said with a chuckle. If I'm not mistaken, this is a pocket dimension, isn't it? I take it it's not the first time you've seen one? Dr. Fate asked. You can say that, yes. What brings you here, today? Do you need my help? The sorcerer inquired. Naruto shook his head. No, everything is good. I just returned to Earth today and I came to say hi. Sorry for popping up uninvited. Dr. Fata turned his head and called out. Inza, dear, we have a guest. Do you mind bringing the refreshments? Then, he showed Naruto to a couch and they sat down next to a coffee table. I've looked at your tower with my sage mode for a bit. There's an impressive number of spells. I wouldn't be too far off to call this place a fortress. I've made many enemies over the years. Enemies that are far more dangerous than the average thug, beings of a magical nature. As a sorcerer, I can never be too careful, Dr. Fate replied. Naruto took out a scroll from one of the pockets of his utility belt and, under the sorcerer's curious eyes, he unfurled it on the coffee table, revealing the sealing diagram and kanji drawn on it. Then, he placed his hand on the seal and, with a puff of smoke, a communication tablet appeared in his hand. It was a light wave device. Most intriguing. I didn't know you were a magician too. Magician is a very broad term, you know that better than I do. But yes, you could say I am wielding magic powers too, Naruto admitted. He could create small dimensions in his sealing scrolls to store objects, but that was nothing impressive in comparison to Dr. Fate, who created a pocket dimension that could even hold living beings. They were in it right now. Naruto was clearly aware of Dr. Fate's superiority when it came to magic. In the first place, chakra was more like a cousin of the true magical power and it was used mostly for battle, not for fine and detailed spells. To cast detailed spells, the use of a fuinjutsu technique was necessary, an array with formulas that would control chakra better than a living being was capable of. Just then, a beautiful woman that looked like she was in her mid-30s entered the living room pushing a trolley with cookies and nectar. Wearing ankh-like earrings and emitting an aura of tranquility, she was none other than Inza, Dr. Fate's wife. Diana told me that Earthlings have a custom to give their friends presents during the winter holiday. I know it's still early but I wanted to offer it to you now so I won't disturb you at that time. Dr. Fate looked at Naruto in surprise. Oh my. The sorcerer was momentarily distracted. He had only helped cure Naruto at the request of the Justice League. He had not expected that the alien would come to think of him as a friend over something as insignificant as that. You're a sorcerer and a very wealthy man at that. I didn't know what else to give you. This is a communication device. You can contact me through it, no matter where in the universe I am, even if I'm 10 galaxies away. It's a technology belonging to the new gods of New Genesis. Then, he grabbed a cookie from the table and bit from it. I know you are powerful and don't need anyone's help. But the universe is a large place and you never know what could happen next. If you ever find yourself in a tight spot, I will help you. It's a promise. Asterism. By the time he left Dr. Fate's tower, it was dark outside. It was the beginning of December and night came much faster than before. There were almost 300 miles from Salem in Massachusetts to New York City, but Naruto covered that distance with his spaceship in a few minutes. Flying above New York at night gave him a very beautiful view of the city. He was in a great mood as he rode the elevator towards the top floor of the building where Wonder Woman's apartment was. A smile involuntarily appeared on his face when he knocked on the door. Seeing that nobody was answering, he opened the door by himself. But then, a thick cloud of smoke blasted him in the face and he momentarily lost his breath. What the hell? Diana. Diana. He closed the door and ran into the apartment worried that something happened to her. I'm here. Following the direction of her yell, Naruto arrived in the kitchen. In there, the smoke was so dense that he could almost not see his hand in front of his eyes. And there she was, wearing an apron and with a bowl in her hand. Wonder Woman was cooking. What are you doing? He asked. Just as he was speaking, Wonder Woman poured the bowl of water in her hands over the pan on the stove. The boiling oil blew up at the contact with the cold water and the pan was blasted off the stove. The smoke in the kitchen became even denser than before and, as on cue, it started to shower from the ceiling in the entire house as the fire suppression system was activated. And, if that was not enough, only a few moments later, the entrance door was roughly opened and a squad of firefighters burst inside, fully geared to combat the fire. Worried because of the intense smell of smoke, her neighbors had called the fire department. Asterism. After they dealt with the firefighters and stopped the fire suppression system from dousing the entire house with water, they had to hire the services of a specialized company to clean up the mess. Nevertheless, they would not be able to come back and live there for the next 2 to 3 days or more. Now, 2 hours later, they were inside a hotel room, sitting in the suite's living room in silence. The rims of Diana's eyes were red and she looked like she was going to cry at any moment. Eventually, she buried her face in her hands and she really started to cry. As for Naruto, he was torn between wanting to laugh and wanting to comfort her. He came next to her and put an arm around her, rubbing her back softly. Hey, don't cry. It's okay, nothing happened, he tried to soothe her. I'm sorry. I wanted to give you a surprise but I'm so useless. I never cooked before, Wonder Woman sobbed. At that, Naruto had to bite his tongue to not laugh. Luckily, she was still with her face in her palms or she would have seen the traitorous grin on his face. As amusing as the situation was for him, he gradually became more serious when he realized that she was actually crying for real. In the end, Diana cried herself to sleep in his arms, much to his stupefaction. He took her in his arms and carried her to the suite's bedroom. Looking at her tear-stained cheeks, he caressed her gently. He tucked a stray strand of her black hair behind her ear and kissed her forehead. After that, he left the bedroom and closed the door after him. Why did she cry so hard? What was she so upset for? Naruto thought to himself. Maybe because she ruined her apartment? But she didn't strike me as someone who cares about material possessions that much. Besides, I have enough gold to exchange into Earth's currency and buy another place if I wanted. And I'm sure she has plenty of money too. He could not help feeling confused. He wanted to ask for someone else's opinion but Kyubi was not there and he did not really have other close friends to ask for advice either. Maybe he'll find an answer on the internet. When they left the apartment, Wonder Woman had taken a small laptop with her too, among several other things. By chance, it was still working, it had not been ruined by the water pouring from the ceiling. As he turned it on, he noticed that it had been in sleep mode and that a program was already running. It was Internet Explorer and there was a page open too. 10 ways to show your significant other that you appreciate him. 1. Compliment him. Tell him that he is handsome and that. 2. Cook for him. The fastest way to a man's heart is through his stomach. Few things make men feel as happy as the image of their wife waiting for them at home with warm food and a smile after an entire day at work. 3. Give him long hugs. Suddenly, Wonder Woman's earlier behavior made a lot more sense to him. Naruto palmed his forehead and laughed in a mixture of disbelief and amusement, exasperation even. Yeah, that's what you've been crying your eyes out for? It turned out that the reason for her crying had not been her ruined apartment but the fact that she could not cook to make him happy. But he had never had such expectations from her in the first place. He knew that she had been raised as a warrior. He was not expecting her to suddenly act like a housewife and cook for him and do chores. To think you were that self-conscious about this. You dummy, he thought, his heart filled with warmth. Asterism. In contrast to the fluffy and feel-good feelings Naruto was experiencing at that moment, other people were not having it as easy. For example, inside a restaurant in Metropolis City, Superman was feeling quite miserable that evening. That's it? We're gonna end it just like that? A woman said, revolted. She was dressed in a very elegant black dress, wearing heels and her black hair fell in waves over her back. I thought you invited me out for a romantic dinner, not that you were going to break up with me. Clark Kent exhaled loudly and pinched the bridge of his nose. Don't tell me you haven't seen it yet, Lois. It just doesn't work. We have different views and none of us is willing to compromise. We end up arguing almost every time when we go out on dates. So you're going to just give up? Am I the only one that cares about this relationship? Ha. I get it. You're a superhero so you can get any woman you want. No point in staying with a nagging, lowly journalist like me, is that it? Superman looked around worried that someone heard her saying that he was a superhero and frowned. I thought you knew me better than that, he said. Yes, I also thought I knew you better than that, but it turned out Clark Kent was minus. Lois. Superman almost shouted, and Lois Lane abruptly shut up. A few heads turned to look at their table, and one of the waiters came to them. Sir, with all due respect, we would appreciate it if you lowered your voices to not disturb the other customers. We apologize, he said awkwardly. The waiter nodded and then went to clean another table of empty dishes. Turning towards Lois Lane, Superman said, "Let's talk like adults, without pointing fingers and throwing insults." Taking her silence as her expressing her agreement, he continued. This relationship doesn't make sense when we're both doing nothing but arguing and hurting each other. Your father also never liked me in the first place, and he isn't exactly subtle about it. Furthermore, this is about my latest article on the protest, isn't it? She asked. Superman couldn't remember when was the last time he intentionally hit a woman, but he felt like he really wanted to smack her at that moment. Are you not hearing what I'm saying? What's there to listen to? Your Justice League work is more important than me. It's as simple as that, she accused. He sighed in irritation. At one point, he had thought that he was in love with Lois Lane, but he getting more disillusioned with her the better he got to know her. Lana dropped everything and flew over the ocean to help me when people believed that Clark Kent had been assassinated, and she betrayed Lex Luthor too, putting her life in danger for my sake, while we were nothing but friends. And then here's Lois, for whom my feelings didn't matter as much as a damned newspaper headline. Any hesitation that he might have had before that evening about ending his relationship with Lois Lane vanished at that moment. Looks like it doesn't matter what I say, you'll ignore it anyway. Since that's the case, I'll stop trying to explain myself. It's just not working between us. But I hope you're smart enough to not reveal my identity. It won't end well for you. Lois Lane clenched her fists. Are you threatening me? You think I'm afraid that you'll? I won't have to do anything. Superman cut her off and said. There are hundreds of metahumans and death row criminals that would love nothing more than to have the chance to hurt me or those close to me. If that day when my identity is leaked comes, I will make sure to protect my ma and pa. But I will leave you to the wolves. And you should be well aware of how incompetent the police and even the army are when it comes to dealing with metahumans. Yes, even your father, General Lane, won't be able to keep you safe. And the only one to blame will be yourself. Seeing how Lois Lane was livid with anger, Superman shook his head. That was not how he had wanted to end things between the two of them. He had wanted to part ways amicably and remain friends after that. Now, he regretted that he had ever confided his true identity to her. See you at work tomorrow, Superman said, and he stood up from the table to leave. After he made several steps, he heard her calling. Kent. He turned around to look at her. You're right, I am smart enough to know to keep my mouth shut. But trust me when I say this, I'll make you regret it. She said. Oh, I am regretting it already. Goodbye, Lois. Then, he left without sparing her a glance. Though he was quite a distance from the restaurant already, his super hearing caught the shout of anger Lois Lane let out after he left, and subsequently the yelling match she got into with the waiter after he politely asked her to leave. Slightly shaking his head, he went into a side alley and, in a blur of movements, he changed from his elegant dress suit into his red and blue superhero costume. After that, he took flight and left Metropolis. As he flew, his mind went to a redhead woman, her teasing smile and her mischievous eyes. Thinking about Lana Lang, his bad mood from his fight with his now ex-girlfriend gradually dissipated and he smiled. But little did Superman know that Lois Lane would keep her promise and that it would happen very soon, much sooner than he would have imagined. Clark Kent took off his glasses and rubbed the bridge of his nose tiredly. Due to his Kryptonian physiology he hardly ever got tired, but nowadays he felt drained. It was a tiredness of the mind. Hell hath no fury like a woman scorned, he muttered to himself. He put the newspaper on the table and grabbed his mug of coffee to sip from it. Though he put the newspaper aside, his eyes were still drawn to the very eye-catching headline on the first page, written with big bold letters. I won't kill you, but your hospital bill will, by Lois Lane. It was an article on the most recent incident that Superman had been involved in. He had thwarted the attempts of some criminals at re-establishing the intergang, but, maybe because of his bitter past with the intergang, or maybe because the past few weeks of stress were starting to get to him, he had been a bit careless with his strength and one of the criminals ended up with a broken leg. 2 weeks passed since Superman broke up with Lois Lane and the journalist had not missed even one chance to write some biting articles directed not just at him but at the entirety of the Justice League. Naturally, that also led to conflicts with his teammates. I told you to not do something stupid. I told you that you'd implicate everyone with you. Batman's shouts were still ringing in his ears. With every passing day, I start to understand more and more my other self from the alternate dimension. Can't the others see that we're doing all we can to help ? He had a belly full of anger. To distract himself from his anger-inducing thoughts, he put the mug back on the coffee table and picked up the newspaper again. He flipped the pages until he reached the tabloid section, hoping to drown his thoughts with mindless gossip. Maxwell Lord IV and Lois Lane, together ? Billionaires are flocking to the star journalist of Daily Planet like moths to a flame. Years ago, it was Lex Luthor, then, it was Bruce Wayne. Now, it looks like Maxwell Lord IV fell prey to Lois Lane's charms. We can't help but wonder, what is her secret to attracting wealthy and powerful men ? The newspaper's page crumpled in Superman's grip and he threw it back on the coffee table. He felt like the anger and frustration that he had bottled up over the past few weeks were on the point of blowing up. He was almost hoping for some clueless alien to attempt to invade the Earth so he could have an excuse to let loose. He went to the bathroom and splashed some cold water on his face. That's a dangerous way of thinking, he chastised himself. I should take a few days off from work. I'll go home, back to Kansas. He was hoping that a few days spent together with his ma and pa would help alleviate some of his stress and anger. He needed a break from all this drama and back and forth with the mass media. Asterism. This movie was awesome. No, it was not. Horribly inaccurate and lots of unneeded violence. Especially the rape scene was completely unnecessary. I knew King Leonidas' wife personally. She would never have with someone else than her husband for any kind of favors. Naruto and Wonder Woman were on their way out of a movie theater. They had just watched together one of the most popular movies that year, The 300. But their opinions on it could not be any more different. It wasn't exactly rape. She agreed to it, Naruto said. It was coercion. You go to someone and put a knife at his neck and ask for their purse. Of course they will agree to hand it to you, Diana shot back. He raised his hands in surrender. But that wasn't the focus of the movie. She sniffed and said, The focus was on the glorification of the Spartans against the invaders. Naruto sighed. Over the past few weeks since they started living together, he naturally noticed how biased Wonder Woman was against men in general. A biting remark here, a condescending one there. It was not often and she never said bad things about good men. But she was full of spite against those like the rap singers and other similar people who disregarded women. Okay, I get it. You still have to admit it, that, this is Sparta, moment was incredible. Phew, I get the chills just thinking about it. Naruto said and he pulled up the sleeve of his top to show the goosebumps on his forearm. You're strong enough to destroy planets but something like that pumped you up ? She said. She could not help giggling. It's different, he retorted. He was just like the rest. An ordinary man, with no superpowers, no technology, nothing. The Persian Empire was a behemoth. Compared to them, he was an ant. To have the balls to do something like that. I don't know what I would have done in his place. Though they had contrasting opinions about the movie, the discussion was engaging and they had fun as they tried to win the argument on whether the movie had been good or bad. But they stopped their back and forth when they came out of the cinema's building and saw the street packed with people. Thousands were marching together with banners and yelling chants. We demand justice. Down with the Justice League. Naruto and Diana looked at each other for a moment. The hell is going on ? He asked. Obviously, he could see what was happening but he was asking what had sparked this protest. 2 hours ago, before the movie started, there was no sign of protests or anything. No way this was spontaneous. Someone organized this, I'm sure of it. Diana said. Naruto took his newly purchased smartphone from his pocket and accessed the internet. Typing, Breaking News USA, in the search bar of the search engine, he found what was going on. "Let's go somewhere else," he said, and he put an arm around Wonder Woman's waist. Then, the two of them vanished, leaving only a few arcs of light behind. A moment later, they appeared on top of one of the nearby skyscrapers. When they looked at the scenery below, they realized that the situation was much worse than they had initially thought. There was an ocean of people below, tens of thousands of them, and more were gathering by the minute. It was 5 p.m., the peak of the rush hours in New York City, but the entire traffic in the center of the city was frozen. "You have to see this," Naruto said, and showed her his smartphone. He tapped on the first result of the search engine and he was redirected to YouTube. Batman throws a man off an 8-story building. It was a blurry video, apparently recorded by a security camera if the low quality was anything to go by. "Tell me, who do you work for?" Batman in the video screamed with his growl-like voice and shook a middle-aged man by his collar. "I don't know, I swear." At his answer, Batman dragged the struggling man by his clothes to the edge of the building's roof and pushed him until he almost fell off. The man screamed in terror. "Tell me." Batman shouted and pushed him completely off the roof, now only holding the man by his clothes, suspended in the air. "Please, I can't tell you. He'd kill my family if I said anything. Please." The man screamed and he started to struggle desperately. But his wild struggle made the hem of his collar rip in Batman's hands and he fell. The screen went black and then a few written lines appeared. "The man survived the fall, but the doctors think he will be paralyzed for life. These are the heroes that protect us." It was a very short video with amateurish editing and the title was a massive clickbait because Batman had obviously not thrown the man, it had been an accident. But although it had been posted only 3 hours before, it already had over 20 million views and the number was increasing crashingly with every passing second. "This is bad," Diana said, a grave look on her face. She often acted as the spokesperson of the Justice League, along with Martian Manhunter, because they were the best people to interact with the mass media. Diana had been blessed with Goddess Athena's wisdom and she was a stoic, no-nonsense type of woman when interacting with people outside of her very small social circle. As for Martian Manhunter, he was also over 1,000 years old and he was a full-fledged alien at that. The reporters were having a hard time getting up and personal with the two of them and they had never managed to make them say stupid things on TV, to get a rise out of them, or to get them stuck with tricky questions. However, in the current situation, even Wonder Woman did not know how was she going to justify Batman's behavior in the eyes of the general population. Asterism. 2 days later, Martian Manhunter and Superman were inside a spacious and luxurious office. In front of them, Maxwell Lord IV was sitting at his desk with his hands linked together under his chin. "My parents taught me to lend a helping hand to those that need it. That's why I offered the Justice League my support in running their operations. But, throwing people off buildings ? That's not what I signed for." He stood up from his seat and put his hands behind his back as he looked through the wide windows at the city below. "In the light of the current events, I decided to retract my sponsorship of the Justice League. If you watched the video, you would know it was an accident." Superman started to say incensed, but Martian Manhunter's voice rang in his mind at that moment. "Superman, we've agreed that you'd let me do the talking." The Man of Steel took a deep breath and became silent. An accident it may have been, but the reality is that a man was paralyzed because Batman decided it was a good idea to dangle him 100 feet in the air from the hem of his clothes, the billionaire said. "In the process of apprehending the criminals, mistakes do happen. I am not saying it is a good thing, but it is a reality, regardless of whether one wants to accept it or not. The police has its fair share of cases of unwarranted brutality and use of lethal force, but the government still finances it. Why ? Because society needs the police to function. Canceling our relationship because of one isolated incident is irrational. The world needs the Justice League." At Martian Manhunter's words, Maxwell Lord IV became silent for a while. "Your words are not wrong. Without the Justice League, the criminals would run amok as they pleased. However, I stand by my decision." "Why ? Superman shouted, unable to hold in his anger anymore. Unfazed by the Kryptonian's outburst, Maxwell Lord replied, "I may be a philanthropist, but, first and foremost, I am a businessman. The general view of the Justice League is worse than ever. If I continued to support an organization that throws people off the buildings, my company's image would be dirty too. The door of the office was opened and a black-haired woman wearing a purple blazer and a white skirt entered the office. Lois, honey, what are you doing here? Maxwell Lord asked. I had a feeling the Justice League would be here today, so I kept an eye open for the opportunity. With all due respect, this is a private discussion. Mass media is not welcome, Martian Manhunter interrupted. Oh, don't worry. Lois is okay, she is my fiancée, the billionaire said, and the woman raised her hand to show them the gaudy diamond ring glittering on her finger. In the end, Martian Manhunter could not change the billionaire's mind. Maxwell Lord IV stopped his sponsorship of the Justice League. Through it all, despite his outburst at the beginning, after Lois Lane's appearance, Superman had been completely silent. Stone-faced, he had not made even a sound until they left. Asterism. After more than 2 weeks of just lazying around, Naruto was getting bored. Wonder Woman was often away, busy with Justice League work and fighting crime, while he had nothing to do except stay at home, wasting his time on the internet. I wanna take a job tomorrow, Naruto said while he and Diana were having a walk through Central Park, in the evening. Wonder Woman took her time to reply. I'm sorry things are the way they are. I hoped we could spend more time together, but there are so many problems that I barely have any free time to be with you. Naruto came in front of her and stopped, making her look at him. Why are you apologizing? One love every single moment we spend together. But the atmosphere here, she trailed off and let out a sigh. Just then, a big snowflake landed on Diana's nose and Naruto chuckled. I don't really care what's going on here. As long as I can see you smile every day, nothing else matters. That was so corny, Diana said, but she took the initiative to embrace him and rest her chin on his shoulder. When they parted, Naruto wrapped his scarf higher up his face, to cover the scars on his cheeks, leaving only his red eyes and strawberry blonde hair visible. You're still so self-conscious about your scars? One told you I think they're really cute. She said and brought a hand up to pinch his cheek. Pot calling the kettle back. You forgot how you cried yourself to sleep after you destroyed your kitchen? He said and laughed. Shut up. He took her hand in his and then they started walking again. It was late in the evening and it was snowing. There were almost no people at all in the park at that time. But for the two of them, it did not matter. They enjoyed the tranquility, the beauty of the snowy paysage, and the warmth of each other's hand. It's going to be a short bounty. An information broker sent me a message that the Thanagarians are requesting my services. I accepted it because the reward is something that piqued my interest. Do you really have to go? Diana asked with a pout. You promised we'd spend Christmas and the New Year together, didn't you? What was it that you said? One never go back on my word. Christmas is on the 24th, isn't it? Today is the 18th. I have plenty of time to return. I will keep my promise to be with you here on Christmas and on the New Year too. Even so, I will be lonely, she said. The way she was whining and pouting brought a big smile to his face. It won't be long, princess. I should be back in 2 or 3 days tops, he said and brought her hand up to kiss it. You're going to love what I'll bring you when I come back. What is it? She asked. Won't tell you now. Don't wanna spoil the surprise. Don't be like that. You can't just leave me hanging. She said and pulled on his hand. But I can. Watch me. However, it was just a front. He knew he had no chance to resist her. He caved in at her pout in a matter of seconds. It's an absorbacron. A Thanagarian device. As for what it does, that's for me to know and for you to find out. And as he said that, he jumped back to dodge a poke at his ribs. Joking around and teasing each other, eventually, they left Central Park and headed back to Wonder Woman's apartment. The next day, in the early morning, Fox and Man left the Earth on their spaceship, not knowing what world-changing events would take place in their absence. That will be all for this video. Be sure to like, subscribe, share, and comment down below for more videos. Goodbye.